How's it going, guys, and welcome back for another video. In this episode, I'm going to look right back to what was my first big dive mission for 2026. Now, I believe it was around Australia Day long weekend. We had a nice weather window open up, and I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do, but Mark said he was keen to take the Ginger Ninja out, so I jumped in with him and we headed offshore. We also took my good mate Nick with us. Now, he's pretty new to spearfishing, so we stuck to some shallower ground that still produces some nice fish, and it turned out to be a really good day. We all picked up a few nice fish, dropped a couple as well, but we even managed to run into a whale shark, which was a pretty epic event, so stick around and I hope you enjoy it. First drift here, we actually got the direction of the current wrong. I believe the tide changed as we suited up and we ended up dropping in the backside of the reef, but I took a dive anyways. There was still a stack of life back here, including this nice spangled emperor that I couldn't quite get to come close enough, but we hopped back on the boat pretty quickly and set up our first proper drift. I hadn't even taken a dive yet when I noticed a small green jobfish. Now, this guy was no monster, but I really don't get many jobbies and I do suffer with seasickness quite commonly. And I find that getting my first fish and taking a bit of that pressure off can really help with that, so he was coming home for dinner. I reloaded after that guy, but I had missed the main structure on this drift, so I took a drop on the back of the reef to see if anything would come in. Getting back to the bottom here, there was a couple more jobbies floating around, so I laid flat on this rock and a nice one snuck in from behind me. There's so many jobbies. Next drift, I made a dive into some nice looking structure and came into this really good little cave, and if you listen closely you can hear a couple of mulloway just croaking away in there. I couldn't see those mulloway in there, so I turned around to see some nice jacks and I went for one of them instead. I was lazy with that shot and I didn't fully extend the gun before I pulled the trigger, which is likely what cost me this fish. But knowing there was jobbies off the back of this reef, I quickly reloaded and headed down for another dive. As I got to the bottom, a couple of jobbies started to come in for a look, but by this stage they were starting to clue on to what was happening. After that drift, we made a short move to another little bit of area that we've done well on before. But I said to the lads that I think at the slack tide we should definitely hit that cave again and see if we can find those dewies we were hearing. First dive here, I'm coming down on another little bit of a cave. Now this one isn't as large as the last cave, but it still usually holds plenty of fish. I had a bit of a look inside and there wasn't anything too fancy in here that I could see, but there was a bunch of mangrove jack around the outside, so I decided to claim redemption on that one I'd missed before. Drifting towards the back of the reef again here, I came across a couple of Spanish mackerel. They were sitting up pretty high, so I took a dive to get down to their level before they came underneath me. I couldn't decide which fish to target, so I sort of took a last chance shot, and unfortunately I only just clipped this guy and he tore off pretty quick. After that dive, I was off the reef once again, so we set up another drift over that cave. I didn't see any fish I wanted that dive, but not long after surfacing, I saw this gold spot wrasse swim under me. He was pretty small, but their legal size is only 25 centimeters, and I'd never managed to land one on the spear, so I took a dive on it. As I was pulling this guy up, Nick took a dive and managed to pick up a nice mangrove jack. Yeah, definitely looks tiny compared to the fucking Coming off the back of the reef here, I took a dive in the hopes of some more mackerel. It wasn't long before a couple mackerel came in, but they approached me from behind, so I sort of turned around and tried to sit up for the shot. With another fail on the Spanish, we headed back to the front of the reef to start that drift again. This time, I took my dive a bit away from that cave, and when I hit the bottom, I could see some nice green jobbies in the distance. They were a little cagey, but when I flicked up a bit of sand, they couldn't help themselves and they come in.
Jobby. I didn't get out the other side of him, just fucking hanging on by his gills. Jobby.
Coming off the back of the reef this time, we came across a really big pennant fish, or African pompano as they're known in the States. These guys are super tasty for a trevally species, and if you ever get the chance to spear one, I'd definitely recommend it.
Shot high. Fucked it.
After that drift, and now 3 missed fish in a row, it was definitely my turn for a boatie. The lads had a bit of a dive while the tide slowed up and picked up a few more nice fish, but eventually slack tide rolled around and I said to the lads it was time we head back to that cave and see if we can find those dewies. First dive back at this cave, I was just sticking my head in and hoping I could see them without having to go too far in. I could hear them grunting again, but they were well and truly hiding somewhere in the back of this cave. There was an absolute stack of life here, with surgeons and jacks all around the front of the cave, and a few more of those green jobbies hanging out in the sand as well. Next dive here, I was really struggling to decide if I wanted to get right into that cave and look for those mulloway, or if I wanted to turn around and try and bring in some of those jobbies I could see. After a bit of a look inside, I decided to turn around and had a nice smallmouth nanny come in on me. Right as I got to the surface, I went to turn off my camera and I looked back down to see that school of mulloway taken off from the cave. That nanny had me pretty wrapped up, so I had to make another dive to get him out, and while I was dealing with him on the top, my camera went flat. With the little window of slack tide we had, I decided I wasn't going to change the battery, which worked out pretty well for me, as my next dive I shot one of those dewies on their way back to the cave, but obviously I missed that footage. After a good little session on that cave, the tide started to pick up again and it was becoming too hard to fight. So I decided I'd jump back in and bogey for the lads for a while. They picked up a couple nice fish and the tide kept getting stronger, and it was getting a little difficult to hit the spots we wanted to hit, but I decided I'd give it one more drift before we headed home. First dive for this drift, I spotted a really nice moo just sitting on some sand in front of these boulders. These guys are super tricky to get close to, so I tried to go around the back of the rock, hoping I could ambush it when I come over. Unfortunately, this guy saw me coming from a mile away and he was long gone by the time I got there. Next dive, I swam through a bit of a crack and was met by a barramundi cod. These guys are super cool critters and supposedly really tasty, but they're protected here in Queensland. This was my last drop for the day, getting towards the back of the reef, and as you can see there was still a heap of fish around, but with a few fish already in the esky, there was nothing here that really stood out to me. After that drift, we were all pretty keen to call it a day as we had a fairly long run home. So we all suited down and got ready for the trip. We hadn't gotten very far before Nick said he saw something that looked like a whale shark, which is really uncommon over here on the east coast. But anyway, we idled over for a look, and lo and behold, there was a whale shark sitting there. So we got ready, chucked our fins and masks on, didn't bother with a suit, and of course I took the camera in, and that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Now, I've swam with a lot of different critters, whales and sharks and manta rays, and nothing even came close to this guy. He was super curious and he hung around the boat for a fair while, so I'll roll on those clips. Fuck yeah.
So much bigger than like.
Yeah.
There, eh?
Look at the girth on the thing. Once that guy had had enough, he turned away and off he swam, and we decided it wasn't fair to follow him. We just let him go on his own path. And with that over, we decided it was time to pack it up and head home for the long trip. But if you've made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the clip and stick around for next time. I got plenty more good footage coming.